afternoon, everyone. My name is Paul, and I am a nerd, and you are lucky enough to be here for the September 2015 Worldox virtual user group meeting, where we are talking today about list management. Mary Jo and I are both going to take this topic and kind of break it down because it's a big, huge topic. Now, when we're not talking about the document list, we're talking about all those other lists, the client list, the document types, the categories, all that stuff. How do you manage that? That's what we're going to talk about. So, Mary Jo, take it away. Oh, Mary Jo's going to unmute her microphone so she can say, no, Paul, you're going first. Thank you, Mary Jo, for keeping me on track. First off, clients. Now, I'm going to use clients as a basis to explain a lot of stuff about list management. First thing I'm going to say about clients is, for many of you, you have PracticeMaster because that's what we do. We put in PracticeMaster in Worldox. Now, maybe you don't. Maybe you've discovered these videos on YouTube or on our website and you don't have PracticeMaster. Maybe you have another practice management system that also integrates with Worldox, okay? But maybe you don't. So the point is, if you have a practice management system like PracticeMaster or another one that integrates with Worldox, you don't maintain this list. This list is maintained by the addition and deletion of matters from your practice management system. Depending on how tightly it's integrated, it will even make them inactive in Worldox when you inactivate them in PracticeMaster, which we're going to use for the rest of the discussion. But what I mean when I say that is any practice management system that's set to integrate with Worldox. However, the management of lists, including this client list, can be controlled with these buttons that are up here. Now, the first thing I want to say about these buttons is you may not have them. Now, let me back up for just a second because this is where people get confused. How do I get there? How do I get to that list to manage it? Well, you go to it. I happen to be in Edit Profile for an email that I just answered a few minutes ago. And so I am in a screen where we would be able to press this button here. It doesn't look like a button anymore in GX4, but trust me, it is. And that's how we get to the list. When we get to that list, I'm going to drag it over here. If you have the capability to add items, you will see this button. If you don't, you won't. If you have the ability to delete or edit an item, you will see these buttons, or you won't if you don't. Maybe you're allowed to print them. Maybe you're allowed to export them. Probably, if you don't have these buttons, you're probably not going to have these buttons. So these 5 buttons that control the printing and exporting, or more importantly, the adding, editing, and deleting of these items may not appear for you. That doesn't mean you can't do this if your administrator grants you the permission to do it. It doesn't mean that someone in your firm can't do it. If your administrator is not willing to grant you the permission, there's, we'd like to keep these systems kind of controlled. At least know that somebody can do this. Now, keep in mind, and I'm not going to get too much into this, sometimes you have separate clients and matters that aren't maintained in PracticeMaster. Very unusual. You could conceivably add them here, okay? But if you were to totally reinitialize your data, your client matter list from PracticeMaster, you probably would lose them, and that would be a bad thing. So even if you don't have a client or a matter in PracticeMaster and you want to do documents for them, I recommend that you simply go into PracticeMaster and create a matter that simply is there because it needs to be in order for Worldox to have it. But keep in mind, you can add them and edit them outside the scope of the integration between PracticeMaster and Worldox. So if I want to add an item, I simply click this. I put in a code. Virtually everything we're going to talk about has a code in the description. A code might be 1001961, and the description might be Purdue Law Offices, okay? If you're going to edit one, you simply change it. And again, we probably aren't going to be editing and adding the clients, but this will become more obvious why you'd want to do this when we get into document types and other things. And that's how you delete one. I'm not even going to press that button. Once a client's been marked inactive, or a document type, or any of the other things we're going to talk about, you have the ability to only show inactive, and I only have one inactive, to only show active, or to show all. So that's what these 3 buttons mean. They simply switch between inactive only, active only, or all. And then find. When you're in this list, if you simply start typing Purdue it's going to take you to the first occurrence of an item that starts with Purdue. If you had Carmichael, let's type Carmichael because you see down here we've got Carmichael as a second name. Yeah, I got to get out of Purdue first. Hold on, Carmichael. Well, first it finds that Carmichael, but then it'll take me to another Carmichael if I hit this button, and those are the two Carmichaels that I have. If I have somebody that starts with Carmichael, it's going to take me to that Carmichael first, but then as I hit these buttons, which can also be the up and down arrows on your keyboard or simply these buttons within this dialog box, you will go backwards and forwards in your find. Another thing to know about these list boxes is that you can sort either ascending or descending. We're currently sorting in a descending mode because the arrow is pointing down. I had to look to make sure I wasn't lying. But if I click that arrow and make it go up, now I'm sorting in an ascending mode. If I just click here, it'll change it. Or I can click in a different column, and now I'm sorting by client number backwards. And now I'm sorting by client number forwards, okay? And if you think that you've had a new client added by somebody else between the time you pulled this list up and now, you can hit refresh. And then finally, you can select either by double-clicking or by highlighting the record and hitting the select button. So that, in essence, is not only the client, but all the buttons up top and what they mean and how to act with them. And matters. Thank you, Mary Jo. Matters, same thing. Now, these fields have been set up in such a way that when you pull up a client and pull up matter, it'll only pull up the matters for that client. So if you need to add a matter, first thing you do is you add the client, and then you click on matter, and then you click on add, because you're adding that matter for the client that you've specified here. This field is dependent on what we call the previous field. And so you need to have the previous field filled in with what you want before you go to add a matter for that particular client. You'll find in some setups where we might have doc types and sub-doc types that this same thing is true. If you want to add a sub-doc type of correspondence, you need to first have selected correspondence and then clicked on the sub-doc type to add the sub-doc type of email from client or something, whatever. So I'm going to turn it over now to Mary Jo, and I'm going to cancel out of here and go right back in because I want to keep unmessing my record. I don't want my record here to get put onto the wrong person.
Okay. There you go. I was like, what? Wait, what? Yeah, I could be there. It's okay. I'm going to talk about Doctype, that list. So it's still here in this client cabinet. So again, I'm just going to click on the Doctype. Am I not? I think I had it. Okay, hold on. Let me be able to move around here.
Technical difficulties. We don't think she has keyboard and mouse. I thought you asked for it too.
I did, but you might have to give it to me because I don't.
Okay, I'm going to go here. Behind the scenes look at how a webinar works.
This has been the day for technical difficulties.
Oh yeah, we've had them.
We've had our day. So anyway, you're going to click on that Doctype, and that is going to open up the Doctype list, and it's going to look again similar to what
Jiggle.
What?
there we go.
I'm sorry. Okay, so it's going to look similar to the client file or the client list, where you still have all of those same buttons that Paul just went through to find, but now I'm just seeing my Doctypes. Now, this list can be modified and changed and moved and added to or inactivated, the same kind of a thing that you can do with the client and the matter list. Right now, I can sort by the same field, start typing on there. If you have the right to be able to add, edit, and delete, you will see those buttons, and you can add a new doc type. Again, short little code and then a longer description. Say OK, and you'll add a doc type. You can edit the doc types. Looks like we had 2 at one point. We just wanted to change it to just be EM instead of email. Now, before you do that, your first instinct might be to just come in here and inactivate one and just, create a new one because you've got duplicates. Remember that you still have documents tied to this old Doctype. So you may want to move those documents or change that into the new one that you've created and then inactivate it, or else you're going to, you might lose that to be able to add those to new documents. So they will still be tied. You might still have some of those on the old email. So not going to prevent you from seeing those documents, but you're going to want to move those before you do that. So that's the Doctype list. You can export that list. You can print this list so you can kind of look at it. We have firms sometimes that have used Worldox for a long time, and then they decide that now that they've used it for so long, their Doctype list is just way too big, and they want to just kind of condense that down, use categories or something else as a means to group those documents. So they print that list out, or they export that list, and they start seeing where they compare that down, move the documents to be the right thing. And you can do a search to find all of the documents that have email as the Doctype, and then you can move those over to the EM, the new one that you create. So there's easy ways that you can do that in mass. You're not going into every single document to move them, but that is something to consider. If you've used it for a long, long time and you want to kind of revamp that, easy way to do that, just go ahead and print that list or export that list. Really review that again. We try now when we're setting up a new Worldox installation to really have our clients evaluate that, and do you really need all of those Doctypes to kind of keep this list nice, short, and sweet. So that's the Doctype one. I am going to switch my cabinet here to our email cabinet, because there's also, you can create other lists. We've created a folder field here in our email so that we can put it in a specific folder. So I'm going to click on that folder list, and this folder list here has a whole bunch of other things that it can show. And we have certain folders that we've created in here that we can save emails into. So that's another list. Anytime that you have a field in your profile group or your cabinet, now in Worldox GX4 they call it a cabinet, that you've created, you can have a list for those things. And you can populate that in there however you'd like. If you have a user list, that's another thing. Let's go into one that has a user. Let's change our cabinet to user, or even if I'm just in the client, we'll stick with our client down here with author and typist. These are tied to the user list. And that user list is tied to all of the Worldox users. So this is maintained over in your WD admin, and you come in and you add your users over there, and then that list is maintained over on that section. You can't really add or change users from here like you can on some of the other lists that we have. This is something that is done directly through WD admin. Users are added in a specific way. Users are inactivated over there in a certain way. And then that pushes out here, so that's the only thing that's available. So if you have somebody leave your firm, your admin is probably going in here and making that person inactive so that they don't show up on that list. Right now I'm just showing my active users. If I needed to see the inactives too, I've got 3 inactive users here, or I can show all and see everybody. So their documents aren't going away, and their tie to those documents are not going away, because we really don't ever want to delete a user out of there, because we do have that tie we want to maintain. But you can inactivate them through WD admin, and then you can look at your list differently through here. So that's the user. Also on our user profile group, or cabinet, I've got to get used to saying that, cabinet. Same thing. This can be tied to that user list. So whenever you're creating a list for a user, that can be maintained again out in WD admin. So, Paul?
And I'm going to talk about one more thing, which is categories. And this is new to GX4, so if you're joining us and you have GX3, or, gosh, do we have categories in GX2? I guess we did. That was when they were introduced. This is different. So I'm going to go ahead and go back into here and show you this category down here. You used to have to go someplace else to do this, so we encourage everyone to get updated to GX4 if you're on maintenance, which most of you are, about all of you, I believe, at least any of our clients that would have Worldox. It's free. All you got to do is install it or get us to install it, and we don't take that much time to do it. So the only thing you have to pay for is our time to do the installation. You don't need to pay for GX4. You just need to get it installed. And in GX4, we have the ability to add and edit categories directly from the profile screen. Now, the thing that's different here is that you've got to understand how categories work. There are three types, and I like to explain them like this. First off, there's public. Public are categories that should apply system-wide. Now, in a law firm, those are things like correspondence, pleadings, maybe incoming, outgoing, scanned, signed. These are ways that people like to categorize their documents, usually outside the scope of what the document type will do. Things like the signed or scanned or filed or submitted. These are great categories because they can be tagged to documents. And so if it's something that should apply system-wide, because you're always going to have, no matter what client it is, you're always going to have documents that are signed or that are scanned or that are submitted or that are filed, then that should be public. And what that means is these categories can apply to any document regardless of what matter it's in. The next thing to think about is folder specific, and the word folder is a little confusing. Folder means whatever these first few fields are in your profile group, which is not what it's called anymore. They're called cabinets. I'm correcting myself. So when you say that something's folder specific in the client file, you mean that it is specific to that client. And so if we go to add edit categories and we're going to add a folder specific category, it would be right now specific to this client, which I think is Hill, and would only apply to them. Now, what kinds of things would only apply to a certain matter? I like to use estate planning as an example because you get all sorts of tax documents and financial statements and trusts that are written one year and then modified another year. And so you get things like 2015 Revocable Trust Paul, 2015 Revocable Trust Barb, 2015 tax documents Paul and Barb, 2014 tax documents Paul and Barb. These are not things that apply to every matter unless you have a lot of matters with Paul and Barb as the couple. These are things that apply to this particular matter and only that matter. Maybe you do have another matter where Paul and Barb are the couple, but you would create the same folder-specific categories over there. Finally, we've got private or personal. I like to use the speeding ticket. A legal assistant, a lawyer, somebody in the firm has a son or daughter who's gotten a speeding ticket, and so they're going to put those in some generic a cabinet, maybe their user cabinet, but they want to categorize them as being tied to Sean's January 2015 speeding ticket. And so they'd create a private category or personal category that only applies to their documents. Other people can see that document if it's publicly available. Sometimes they aren't. That's a whole different matter. But those categories are only to be used there. Once you know what type of category you want, and for the most part, people, users, are going to be creating folder-specific categories, you simply go over here and you hit Add, and you create one. I'm going to say HHC because it's Hill Carter 2015 guidance review. Don't ask me what that would mean, but I have now created a category that is specific to Hill Carter, okay? And it can only be used for Hill Carter. Maybe for separate matters for them, but only for Hill Carter, okay? So that's important to understand, but the creation of the category, very, very simple. If you have the ability to do it, you will see the Add button or the IC. I'm not even allowed to edit my folder-specific categories just because we don't use them, and therefore we haven't set up that permission. So if you have the ability to do something in the categories, you will see it, and they may vary from folder to public to personal, okay? Yeah, thank you. Now I can edit it. Thank you, Mary Jo. It was because I didn't have one highlighted. So I guess I was going to say, hey, I'm the boss. I should be allowed to do this. It was because I didn't have it highlighted. But if when you have something highlighted, you don't see all your buttons, the ones that are grayed out are the ones you have not been given permission to use, or the ones that you don't see are the ones you haven't been given permission to use. So that's how you do it with categories. Pretty straightforward. And those are your list management concepts: how to add, how to edit, how to delete, most importantly, how to get in there, how to understand whether you have rights to do it or somebody else is who you're going to have to go to get it done. Okay, now, while we're here, let's go to our website. and show you that if you go to attorneycomputersystems.com, you can see all sorts of exciting stuff, including all of our video content, and that's why I've brought you here. We have 3 water coolers that we give on the last Monday of every month. Tabs 3 is at 1, PracticeMaster is at 2, and you are here right now at the Worldox Virtual User Group meeting, which is our water cooler, and they are at 3 o'clock. Usually on the last day of the month, unless there's some sort of Labor Day or Memorial Day or some sort of a conflict. Last Monday of the month, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. We also have our Coffee Pot webinars that I give on a given Friday in a month. It changes from month to month depending on what my schedule is. We have Mary Jo's eBytes video series that are pre-recorded, not live events, and she records 3 of those every month, 1 on Tabs, 1 on PracticeMaster, 1 on Worldox. And we have another pre-recorded non-live show that we call the Paul and Mary Jo Show, which is a longer format video that will take a single topic and go into great detail, so usually 10 to 15, sometimes 20 minutes worth of detail about that specific topic. You can simply go to one of the video titles, like the Worldox Virtual User Group, and if it's live, you'll see registration information for the next event. We will have October's come tomorrow morning. And as you scroll down, you will find recorded versions of all the virtual user groups we have given throughout the years. And for Worldox, I think we've been doing this for 3 years. For Tabs 3 and PracticeMaster, I think we've been doing it for 5, 6 years. We've got a lot of video content in the virtual user group meeting front. Aside from scrolling through and kind of browsing, if you know exactly what you want to look for, we can go to search and type whatever it is that you're looking for. If you're looking for how to email statements in Tabs 3, just type email statements and either choose one of the items that pops up, or once you've hit enter, you're taken to a list of titles that deal with that topic. So very cool, hundreds and hundreds of videos. Spend your entire evening. Don't go to sleep this evening. Get a bottle of wine. Watch the Attorney Computer Systems video series. But above all, have a wonderful time. Thanks for attending. We'll see you next month. Have a great month.